with that said, I would just like to give it a go and officially welcome Aravinth Panch to his session at the GITA conference. We are all working towards a world in which all development and application of science and technology contributes to a good future and well-being for the coming generations, under the motto, finding the others. In this spirit, we'd like to start with a few house rules and announcements. So I see you for now all muted. So we would like to ask you to stay muted, but if possible, if you're not in an underground train, put your video on. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand and or post it in the chat. Please be aware that this recording will be made public on YouTube and other channels. And towards the end of the session, I will post the upcoming sessions in the chat and you can choose where to go next. And with all that said, I would like to hand over to Ara and thank you for being with us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Sebastian, Michelle, and other participants, and thank you, Thomas, for this invitation to tell our story, why we do what we do. And for that, I have a small story deck. You know, we don't call it a pitch deck. We have a story deck that I would love to share. And it's can you see? Yeah. Okay. So. It's all like, you know, maybe it's also very relevant to what's happening in the world, in some parts of the world, when you look at Afghanistan situations and like that. So I was also born in a war zone, lived there till I was 14 years old, born at the time, and, you know, several people in our family were, so to say, became collateral damage for the war, and grew up in the day-to-day war zone. And the longer the war, younger the situation, right? Younger the soldier situation arrived. The longer the war, younger the soldier situation arrived. So at the age of 14, I was in a situation to be forced to be a child soldier. And that's the time that I have to leave the country. And I became a child refugee in another country where we were not, you know, welcomed. Basically, I was away from the family. And so after 10 years of being a child refugee with a lot of struggles, you know, as you can see, in a country where you don't have a system for refugee integration, and they didn't let me go to school. And then everywhere there was some form of a bigger oppression than what I have seen as a suppression being in a war zone. But at that time, I really learned that I have to solve my challenges, my own challenges. I have to solve myself. You know, no one has come and helped me. And that's how, since that teenager, that I've developed this mindset. And when the war ended after 30 years, I went back to Sri Lanka. I was able to go leave the country where I lived as a refugee. And I saw that the 3 decades of the war caused huge impact on the socio-economic and you know, environmental ecosystem. And as you can imagine, the whole global South has pretty much every NGO, international NGO based. Like that in Sri Lanka also, more than 1,200 NGOs were based, but they couldn't solve the fundamental problem with imported solutions. So at that moment, I said that, okay, if the same mindset can be applied to these challenges as well. So we have to empower these local people to solve the challenges on their own so that it can be better solved. So there are some details what happened during the wartime. You know, as you see then in the trade side, if you see, look at the environment side, currently we lose around 400 elephants, wild elephants a year in Sri Lanka at this time. And negative trade balance of, this was 2019, around minus $9 billion negative trade balance, became one of the least innovative country. And then we decided, okay, that a lot of peace building work is happening around the country after the war ended. So I found my co-founder, Kishore, as you see him here, that he has been running this peace building and reconciliation organization, which we converted into a social enterprise, as a non-profit social enterprise, to tackle these challenges But to tackle these complex socioeconomic and environmental challenges, we need to first build our capacity. And then from that capacity, we want to create these grassroots innovations. And from those grassroots innovations, we want to create our, sustainable startups or impact ventures so that, we can sustain that whole effort for a long period, not rather than just importing something and giving them for free, as a livelihood. We didn't want to give a livelihood. We wanted to create an intellectual livelihood. So our focus, for whom we want to do in Sri Lanka in first place is to the war-affected regions. So, the underserved communities and protecting those environment and creating, still we want to keep doing our peace building work. We don't want to just leave that behind because it needs to be done for probably another 2-3 decades in a country that has the 3 decades of the war. So we divided, we don't want to be also yet another social enterprise, nonprofit, that, someone sends someone's charity money and then we completely depend on them. So we decided that we want to find ways to generate our own cash flow. And that cash flow, apart from whatever is needed, we can feed it back into a social mission so that we can sustain ourselves. So that is how we balance our work as, and activities. In that the most most focus that we have is this we call a personalized empowerment. This is a model that we developed from my experiences and things. We call it it's a personalized empowerment, which every person who has to be empowered has the model has to be personalized, and we call it also a dream space life cycle. So this is something like you can call it like as an incubation stage, but for several years. So it's around 18 months, more than 2 years. And then I will tell you in the 5 stages, and I will tell you with the benchmark story, success story, how we do that. So in a country like Sri Lanka, we still have the English education system, GCSE, like this is Sanjeevan. So what we do, we try to identify the candidates at the age of 16, 17 from these societies, because we have a lot of field workers on the ground. And what we look at the candidate, how do we discover them, is basically if they have a motivation to solve social and environmental challenge. So Sanjeevan, when he was in the school, he was in a scout. He was protecting, doing campaigns for the environmental protection. And then he walked from the north tip to the south tip of the country, a few 500 kilometers through the jungle and the forest to promote the peace. And he became the first Sri Lankan Tamil teenager to climb Elbrus. He got an opportunity. And this is how we see, the candidate has this motivation, but does not have the background and opportunity and skill to apply that into something. And when they finish their school at the age of 18 in Sri Lanka, we have 1.5 to more than 1.5 year of gap between they can go to university, because most of the time education is governmental and public education. There's no place for everyone, and there's also a certain type of reservation. And this is the gap that most of these underserved community youngsters get lost, get wasted. Either the families would say, go, you have a time, go to some Middle East country, do something, and they become a labor worker forever. Even if they are talented, they never come back, or they become a gangster or whatever it is. It's a 1.5 year of unguided time there where they get lost. So we target this time so that we don't disturb their school education. We don't disturb their potential university education. We incubate them in a way. It's almost like adopting them. We take them out of the families, bring them in, we accommodate them, we feed them, and we train them, and then we keep them with us so that we can make sure that our empowerment is working, is intact. This is a big work, because most of the time in Global South, before empowering someone like that, you have to empower the parents, and so it's a big challenge to convince them and get them out and so on. So Sanjeevan's family gave only 12 months initially, and they said, let's go. The second stage, what we do is maker education or challenge-based learning. We don't do subject-based or project-based, we do challenge-based learning. What we do, basically, we identify what challenge they are victim of. So everyone is coming with a certain challenge. If you look at those regions, we have kids coming from the fishermen families in the oceans. We have kids coming from the farming families. We have kids coming from from the jungle, where there's a high incident of a wild elephant conflict, where 85 people a year die in Sri Lanka by human and wild elephant conflict. So based on the challenge, we create a training program for them to learn multidisciplinary thing. We start with storytelling, peace building, non-technical stuffs, and we take them all the way from electronics, mechanics to biotechnology, and they all trained in-house based on a challenge. So if you have a question also, you can ask, because we are just only a small group. And then once we identify, okay, what they can be good in, because why we do this multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, because in a country like Sri Lanka, like a lot of countries in Global South, they don't have much disciplines or jobs. We say that in our country, like we have a doctor, engineer, or one or two types of engineer, lawyer, and failure. Majority of them will fit into the category because they want to do something else, but there's no education, infrastructure, or discipline or industry to work. So that's how we provide them multidiscipline to identify what they can be good in, because they themselves don't know when they come to us what they can do and so on. The third stage, we apply a lot of psychological methodologies to really go into deep, like what they want to do in their lifetime after we give them this perspective. So in Sanjeevan's case, it was voter. We identified as a voter. His family wanted him to become a lawyer. But when we went through several stages, we understood that he wants to be water. And this is our hometown where we are based, is surrounded by ocean and the backwater, and like within 30 minutes, and the proper dense forest, jungle regions, and so on. And our city used to be called as City of Singing Fish during the colonial time, because we used to have a certain aquatic creatures in the backwater that kind of make a noise in the night that sounds like a song. And there's some BBC recorded it, probably 100 years ago. And we are losing all this biodiversity. We don't have them anymore. And on the ocean side, we have a lot of ocean mammals, and also manta rays and sharks, which are very specific to our region, and native species. It's been also lost due to several things like poaching and different, ocean, that the acidification that happens because of the agriculture runoff and stuff like that. But it is not taken care of. People don't even know, local people, they live there, they don't even know. Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone, the water region, the ocean, is 7 times bigger than the Sri Lanka's land. So our blue ecosystem, the blue economy and the blue ecosystem should be 7 times in focus than our other ecosystems and in the country. But literally, there's not much work done there. As you would have seen in the recent days, there was this ship that burned with the containers full of nitric acid that came from, I think, went from Singapore to Dubai, and then they refuel. And so no one knows, even at that situation, what's happening underwater. They can only see from, aerial view. So we know that if we have a device to solve this challenge, if we have a device, a technology that can collect underwater data and send this data, give this data to a relevant organization, then it would be a perfect grassroots innovation to solve our local challenge, which in a coastal family like him are affected of. Yeah. So that is the stage the candidate is started developing an open innovation from existing open source project, and based on this challenge, and we provide them support, material, financial, everything, mentoring, and to build this type of grassroots innovation. The fourth stage is that, initially we thought that is water, and then we later understood that Sanjeevan wants to specifically work on ocean biology, and we don't have much of this in-house capacity. So what we do in this stage is we bring in a lot of experts from Berlin. Before pandemic, even flew to Sri Lanka, stayed with us for a few weeks and trained on those hard tech, science and engineering and these topics, technology topics, so that the candidate and also the other team members are trained so that we don't have single point of failure. So we bring that to our second stage where we have another faculty, another discipline. So like that, the same way we also tell this story to international organizations and to look for opportunity. In Sanjeevan's case, we presented that story to Plokan. Plokan is an organization in the middle of Atlantic Ocean away from Gran Canaria. And this is the only deep sea exploration center in the world, which is inside the ocean. And they have all these type of things, it's a 50 million euro infrastructure. They have all these type of underwater equipment. And their glider is 200,000 euro glider. And our glider, as underwater glider, is 2,000 euros. It's open source, reproducible, maintainable, upgradable. So in this way, we are not only building a solution only for us, but for so many other countries in the global south who could be benefited for such solution. So Sanjeevan actually got selected. They agreed to train him in this infrastructure, even though he doesn't have any bachelor degrees or anything like that in oceanology. And he was the first one from in the whole, I think, Asian region to go there to have such training. So that is the fourth stage. We amplify their domain-specific knowledge to get them like really expert in that. So identify them, give multidiscipline, make an innovation, amplify their knowledge, and now we can make use of all of that only if you have some form of an enterprise out of it. So we train the candidates a lot on these business modeling, financial modeling, whatever that is necessary, company building, legal formation, all that they need to know. Still, they're under 20, all of them, and then we take these solution and go to relevant stakeholders to test and pilot and validate if that would be, to get some user feedback. Of course, we do design thinking first place to know that if there is something needed. The one of the biggest example is Asha. She's the only marine mammal biologist of Sri Lanka. She's a very famous person. If you have watched all these ocean documentaries from international people, she's also been part of that. And she has a project called Ocean Well, where they are protecting the blue whales of our regions. The blue whales are the biggest organism in the world, and the biggest of all the blue whales are in our water. And we have completely no idea, the locals, of how to protect this blue ecosystem. And for a person like her, she has to dive, collect data, collect so much of data, spend so much of resources. But if she has some solution like this, this can save a lot of time in these oceanic researchers and conservation organization. That is the moment we graduate the candidate as a change maker, and they either we help them, we build the organization for them, either a social enterprise, for-profit, non-profit, or a startup or initiative. They take the decision, and then they go on to develop this further and with their team. So as a Sri Lanka, as a country known for tea and tourism, if someone studies oceanology, the maximum respectable job that you can get is it's a clerical job in a bank. So with this, Sanjeevan's organization, Ocean Biome, now there are 25 youngsters who are studying oceanology, working with him to develop the ocean advocacy and ocean technology. Otherwise they would be just, they don't have that opportunity. So with this way, we are not only building the change maker, but we are also building that industry that does not exist. Maybe in 15, 20, 30 years, it can mature so that people don't have to go out as a labor worker to Middle East or asylum seekers to Europe or the global North. And this is a true peace building and reconciliation for us. So this is how the whole life cycle works. And there are, if you have some questions, you can ask. And then before I can tell, what about some other projects and some other activities that we have. Otherwise, I can also proceed. Maybe you can ask at the end.
For those who have just joined, you can just unmute yourself. Ideally, raise your hand if possible. Or you just post something in the chat. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'll just proceed. You have a question for Sebastian? Yeah.
Sebastian, please.
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's really a wonderful project, and I really admire what you do. And I think this is really exactly what we need to do, empower these young kids and youngsters to find purpose in life and follow a different route than maybe the society would expect or their environment would expect from them. And I think doing that has a tremendous effect, as I see it, really on the development of societies and countries towards becoming regenerative and taking care of your natural habitat and valuing it. And so it's really great what you do, and it absolutely makes sense. Yeah. So as I had the luck to build an accelerator program in Sri Lanka, as I mentioned on LinkedIn earlier to you. So I really ask myself, so what can you do, or what is needed to scale that up, to make that part of really education of a country, because this is the education not only you in Sri Lanka need, but also we in Germany need. Yeah. But probably it's easier to establish something like that in Sri Lanka than in Germany, because you don't have the legacy. Yeah. We still believe we have to do school and studies like we do for the last 150 years or so. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what you are doing is really the future of education.
Challenge-based learning, challenge-based
exactly.
education.
Yeah, and really solving something and finding meaning in life in your teens or in your 20s. So probably when you are looking in Germany, you're finding most of the people that are in their 30s or 40s or even 50s or 60s start finding meaning in their life. And now imagine a society that is built on that type of education, long-term impact. I cannot imagine. So that's really
thanks,
a dream
Sebastian.
space. I could cry. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's why we call it a personalized environment, because every kid is different, every person is different. One size does not fit all. So our education system and every framework, the societies, everything is designed in a way that is, it's one political system, one religious system, one educational system. So it needs to be personalized, and that's what I understood being a war child and a child refugee, supposed to be a child soldier, and all that thing. So I think, yes, you have Sebastian, one more, yeah.
Yeah, just building on what Sebastian was just saying. One very quick resonance. What I really liked, it's not saving some souls. It's basically saving us with the example you gave, and that really resonated a lot. What I don't know your presentation, so I'd be very curious moving forward on if you dive a little bit deeper into challenge-based learning. How do you assess the challenges? How do you contextualize? You've been mentioning design thinking. And what I'm really curious about, because I believe I'm not the only one, is what are you really good at? How do you assess that? And
Yeah, exactly. So I can go with the other examples are clearly like telling that. So this is how we actually innovate, to find local challenge, open innovation, but I will just directly jump into other candidates. So how do we identify what they want to do? Which is just to answer that question. I don't have his slide here. We have one like this project, it's a fully developed project now, like as an organization, and graduated already. He's actually elder brother of the other one, the Sanjeevan, so they look alike a little bit. And so for me, like I use some form of psychological and hypnotherapy technologies to understand what they want, even they don't know what they want. I can give you an example. I have one candidate who come from very extremely remote regions, underserved forest, jungle, borderline villages, and he works as a mechanic. He didn't get to go to university because his father was a small mechanic repairing stuff, but he really wanted to solve this pollution, plastic pollution thing. So when we took him in, and then, it takes a lot of time for me to understand their background, family, this and that, and apply these methodologies, psychological methodologies. And then I usually apply some form of a regression that I can get back to the core of the pain point that made them to think why he has to solve this plastic pollution. He said that, yeah, I saw that so much issues are happening in the country and I saw movies about it, but these are all later, that happened later. What is the first thing that happened? And that thing is, even if it's silly, that is the most important thing in finding the true purpose, is that first-hand pain point. When I identified after that regression when he was a young, small kid, he had a small puppy, and that puppy ate a plastic bag and it died. So that was the first pain point that we identified that caused him to, throughout his childhood, and he thought that, okay, this is something, this is bad, this is killing animals, and so on. So taking to that point to identify why they are the victims of the challenges is helping to make them a better innovator. For example, this candidate, he comes from very, very underserved communities, Muslim community. We all are minority in the countries, and so it's Muslim community. None of them in this community have been to higher education. Even his family, none of them had a prior education. And when I started talking to him, and his home, his community is actually in a landfill in the eastern part of Sri Lanka. So when I was a child, when I was crossing that landfill, so we talked about so many things. He asked that, he asked this, can we do this, can we do that? And through that learning process with him, trying to identify who he is and what he wants to do, I came up with something that I reflected my mind that, when I was a child, when I'm going through his region, the only thing that I remember was how stinky it was, because it was a landfill, and especially organic landfill, because there are around 1,000 cattle like buffaloes nearby region where people actually just go and put a lot of things and so much, and also have other types of landfill. So I asked him, what if we convert all the trash that is thrown at you and your society into a commodity? What if we can collect this organic cattle waste and make decentralized methane gas digesters, so that each of these families there can produce the gas that they need individually at home? You don't need like a centralized gas producer. It's very difficult to build. And what if, so he designed a small thing using a simple water tanks, and around 5,000, 6,000 rupees something cost. He built it, and then we tested it, and then people, how we can do that. So that is how. So we are identifying what are they victim of, what is their challenge. And once we identify, and then we apply some innovation on top of it, or business, whatever it is, to make that into something sustainable and that can grow to next level. So each of these candidates have their own story, and that's what how we identify. And how do we also get to access to these candidates? Also, we have a lot of people on the ground. So she is 17 years old now. When we identified here last year, February, our peace building team brought her in from an extremely borderline village at the jungle. She has been creating what she did. She took this fruit, it's called Java plum. It's like a plum here, but it's in Southeast Asian native species. She's grinding the seed, and she made a small filter to remove cadmium and cadmium pollution in the water. A girl sitting in a jungle thinking about cadmium pollution in the water, which is highly common in cities where you have metal pipes. It comes from this, coatings of the metal pipe. And the whole process is, so what she has developed is form of an organic nanotechnology sitting in a jungle. So if you ask the international aid, it can be anyone, USAID, UK, GIZ, whoever it is, to solve this problem, probably millions of euros would have been put into some nanotech company. But she, being in her environment, exploring what is possible, is exactly, is the proof of concept of our idea. Why we have to find them, why we have to actually enable them, bring them up to the next level. So we brought her, we taught her how to write the scientific paper, and then we presented to the Stockholm Institute of International Water Institute. This is a prize given to very talented young innovators around the water in the Stockholm Nobel, like where they give the Nobel Prize in the town hall. And she was the winner of that from 40 plus countries last year. Unfortunately, it was online, and she couldn't go otherwise to Stockholm. So like that, we identify their environment. What is the challenge? What can we do? Can we do something with that next stage? So when they come into the life cycle, we find ways to make that into a product or a solution or a startup that can sustain for life. At this stage, they are just grassroots innovations. Yeah. So to come back with the capacities that we built, and we have from, as I said, everything from storytelling to electronics to biotech and space tech, nanotech, whatever you can mention. We build that, these things that I worked myself hands-on, and then I train my team. I usually train my trainers first. And when they're a little bit confident, I bring in experts who can train them to the next level. That's how we build these capacities. And when you ask this question also, how do we identify what they're good in, is just by giving them multiple things to do, and we identify what they can be good in that part of the project. And people accept what is given to them, right? Usually if they say you are electronics engineer, and then people just believe it. Maybe they are good in, as an artist. You never know until you give them that opportunity. So we gave all these 14 different labs we have, and then we prepare them. As I said, a lot of international experts fly to Sri Lanka and be there. And for example, I can tell how we build this capacity. For us, we are an NGO. We have more capacity than an engineering company in Berlin, probably, in terms of the technical and non-technical capacity of team of 70 people. So how we do, as I said, I train the trainers, and then we bring in experts, and then finally we find really super big expert to keep them mentoring for many years. The guardians are identified and they take care of that. For example, Nico is the deputy director of Griffith Film University, and he's been for last 2 years been training our Story Lab team on a weekly basis, daily basis, to get them to a stage. So when they came, the whole Story Lab team, when we identified and we started training, we identified, okay, they really want to be a visual content creators, not some electronics engineers. We got a fund from Australian Aid for 25,000 euros. 8 months, we taught them from camera handling to digital marketing. And then before that, they didn't even know how to use something like a computer tool, digital tool to do anything. And now the team is producing documentaries and movies at an international stage. They are all are in 20 to 23 years old. And also one good information is that now we are even doing that for one influencer who asked us to provide services that in this visual content creation. So in that level, we can grow. They have never been to any traditional education where they learn visual communication, 4-year bachelor's or whatever. They learn only with these challenges, with these experts. And within a short period of time, they become, confident enough to do that. Like that. So we have so many experts been there before pandemic, and then in online, it's happened. And since 2-3 months now, people are moving again. A lot of people. There will be another mycologist based in Berlin. He will move to Sri Lanka soon. And there's another Dutch person in July last month moved to Sri Lanka to our team. So when they go there, they go for pretty long time. So another thing is that we are still a peace building organization. That is something we should keep always doing it. Technical, of course, we have dedicated teams for everything. So we still do all these arts, video creation, as I said, the visual content creation, all the different type of empowerment, women empowerment, rural empowerment, youth empowerment, peace building, reconciliation. And we have projects with the international aid that happens parallelly at the same time. And that's something we keep doing. And these are some organizations, so to say, startups, which were spun off from our candidates, won international awards on different things, and we have been featured by international. For example, this boy Sanjeevan I've shown in the initially, he has been featured by BBC at least in the last 3 months 6 times, because we have 23 medals of Duke of Edinburgh, and we are the one organization with the large number of medals. And then when Prince Philip died, so they just started looking into youngsters who have been supported under this framework, and then they've been showing our work and so on. So like that, we have been also getting a lot of international recognition. We don't have much nationally in anything that we do. It's still it's a challenge. And another thing is that we have around 20 plus internal team members and 50 plus external team members we have trained. We have uplifted more than 500 youngsters, but around 50 of them are actually working closely with us on the project basis, or around 70 plus team, we can say. And when you look at this team composition in a war-affected region of Sri Lanka, we can say that we are the only organization that has all different ethnic and religious group of people working in a different language, different religion, different ethnicity in one organization. So we are bringing in different talents, different people from other parts of Sri Lanka, and bringing them, uniting them by passion, by science, by innovation. Not, if you look at the millions and $billions of the international aid money that's been spent for peace building, they take different religious leaders, put them in a room, feed them and run, and then just choose by, But this is a true peace building and reconciliation. Even from the other parts of Sri Lanka, like even from Colombo, where the capital, people are leaving their best big jobs and moving to our, to our town, to city, to work here, because the opportunities and the infrastructure and the knowledge that we have is not even existing in the capital of the country. So that we are also changing the narrative that you don't even have to, now we said that we don't have to go outside of Sri Lanka, but we are saying you don't even have to go to another capital city, that you can do things where you are, to make that impact locally first. And then that will scale, globally. So as I said, we have a lot of experts who have been, personally stayed with us and then, remotely mentoring. Some of them are now going, we have from aerospace to, biotechnology, as you can imagine. I think we are at the end of the slide. So usually how, like when people ask how they can support, we always look for personal engagement, how you can be part of this mission, because we want people to truly believe and be a part of this mission, right? Some people, they say, they don't have that time, but they can bring in some investment, impact investment. And a lot of organizations, international aid or some organizations, CSR, they say that, okay, we would like to work with you. And for example, as I said, for the last year project with the Australian aid, we proposed Australian aid that we can create 20 visual content creators or storytellers around ecotourism, because this is one of their mandate. So they propose, and then we are not like other places, we are only teaching something, because in a country where you teach, and then where will they get a job if there's no such industry? So we are completely taking through our life cycle model also for a short period of time for a little bit, elder people. And we have a lot of internal resources, and some organizations are asking, okay, can you provide that, and so on. Yeah. So some numbers, it's very small numbers in terms of what you would need to build a microbiology lab here. It would cost €500,000, but we build things by, even those equipments we don't buy, we build it ourselves from open source projects, so that we know that maybe someday we can fix these equipments and so on. And one of the big things that we want, and as a next stage for our organization, is we are limited in our infrastructure that we have. We have grown big, really big, 70 plus people, you can say, in all the internal, external team members. And we still have challenges from the society, right? So our neighbors called police and said that it's an official building, that we are doing some work with, making things, and they couldn't watch TV. So people, that's what I asked them. If you don't watch TV, nothing wrong is going to happen in this country. And we are just creating a completely different movement. Why don't you let us to do that? And this suppression is happening in multiple layers. Even though we have won several big achievements all around the world, we are completely not even covered by the national media, because we are that small minority group, And that, in different places, we get this form of suppression. But so that we really want to build our own eco village, it's around 22 acres land we have been donated, and in an isolated island. So we would love to build something so that we can provide a platform for international and local innovators to freely innovate and test and validate their environmental innovations for environmental protection and so on. And some people are interested in such projects. So to say that currently what we are working on, just to give you another perspective. So mycelium. Mycelium is a root of the mushroom, and this is the magic material of the new world. Yeah, so it's an organic material, and even a bigger brands like Hermes, luxury brands, they moved from the animal leather to mycelium leather. Mycelium can take any mechanical property. It can be soft, it can be hard, it can be long, it can be elastic. But the way that you cultivate the mycelium, that you need to know the biology part of that. So, and the whole market is, the global market cap is $40 billion in 2025, but only some big organizations in the global north have access to this technology or whatever it is. That's why it's not available for small, medium enterprises to adapt from plastic to mycelium-based packaging. So we started developing, we have our complete know-how now, and then we have been pitching this, and we'll have a Nestle reached out, we pitched it to local organizations and corporates and also local organizations, and they want to see some prototype. And that is how a grassroots innovation that we have will become a commercial innovation. And each of these things that I have shown is getting a little bit, in the next stage to become commercial. You also asked this question. For that, we need an infrastructure. With the limited infrastructure, with the grassroots innovation, you can make one or two. And there are orders coming. There are people asking, can you make this plastic shredding machine? We go order. We don't have that place. So that's what we want to build this place. We are asking impact investment from, international community, also from diaspora community, if they can give some money that we can build our infrastructure so that we can commercialize, take these grassroots innovation and these change makers into real proper startup like in Europe or something like that. So that is where we are now. And thanks for listening. And that's it about my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ara. I'm sure there's lots of questions. Hence, we are a few people. I would just invite you to unmute and just go ahead. Maybe Ahmed can also unmute if possible. Sebastian.
Yeah. So when you dream, I think you have already achieved some of your dreams, yeah, looking back at your personal history. But when you dream how this will look like in 20 years from now, and what are the biggest obstacles you need to overcome to achieve this dream?
For me, the dream is this, as I said, this eco village. If you know this place called Auroville in Pondicherry in India, it's a utopian city design township that is designed 30 years ago by Germans and French. Or you can say like this Tropische Insel in Berlin, something like that, as an independent ecosystem that compensates, like it's not something that, we coexist with the nature. And at the same time, we make use of this, blue economy or green economy, blue innovations, whatever it is. And that is my pure dream, to not only for local people, but to co-live, co-innovate, co-cook, create, and all in one place. And that's what we are working, and we are already in the intermediate level. We got another land donated, and which we are constructing now with the donation, crowdfunding, crowd investment that we raised, small one, so that, it's an intermediate step of the big one, the next one. So I think it's also the Sri Lankan government's mandates and the Chinese government's mandate, because now a lot of the Chinese involvement in the region, because they want to make Sri Lanka like a Hong Kong for China, right? It kind of acts as a gateway to Southeast Asia, because Hong Kong has other issues. Singapore is flooded. So they are looking for some alternatives. So I think I would love to create an ecosystem in that region where anyone can unconditionally innovate and test and validate innovations that, coexist with the nature, to protect the nature. And that is what is my dream. And the biggest obstacle is we are not the decision makers, part of the decision maker in the country. So we are a small minority, and there are so much always here and there, all these issues, which we have to always fight for our rights in many ways, even though there's everyone forget about this war, and the war was completely unnecessary in many ways. And but this is a challenge. How can we prove ourselves to our own people? I think we proved very well to the international crowd. And so that's the challenge. It'll be the big challenge to allow us to do what we want to do.
I was very, very curious when you were mentioning imported problems or challenges. I don't know how you phrased it, and just building on what you just said on geopolitical setups, potential setups. What are those imported challenges?
Imported, not challenge, solutions. For example, there's this region that we work, I think in this picture, they were like these small kids. It's a borderline village where we adopted a school with 104 kids. It's a high incidence of human-wild elephant conflict. So 10, 15 years ago, during the wartime, we didn't have electricity. So the only solution known to protect people or the villages from elephant was electric fences. And also a lot of other solutions were given to people, like landmines, traps, poisons. And that's why we lose 400 elephants a year till now. And these are the solutions which are not, if you talk to these people, the low like kids, they really want to coexist with this animal, but they don't know how. But the wrong solutions were given. One of that is the funny part of that is since there was no electricity, some NGO like international aid, in the Europe, I don't want to mention, paid a lot of money and then designed solar panel powered electric fences. At the time, the panels were like glass, if you remember. Now we have different types of matte type of panels. Before it was really glass, like mirror type of panel. So someone sitting in Europe, sitting in a nice room in a wheelchair, like, this rotating chair, designed that and send it. And within a month, it's all failed miserably. Because jungle does not have only elephants. There are monkeys. If you show a mirror to a monkey, he thinks it's another monkey. It broke all the solar panels. So someone sitting somewhere didn't know about the monkey problem. So this is one of the simplest, funniest example you can see. Why, a lot of people are involved in this international aid, but they are not involved in the development of these solutions. They are only used in deployment of these solutions.
How much does design thinking help you? And how much are you applying thinking in systems? Which from what I heard, you do a lot.
System thinking. Design thinking and systemic approach is something that we use on a daily basis to organize a big organization with people who have never had a professional working experience. So design thinking, as I said, like the first expert, I would say, who moved to Maita, she's also a design thinking expert based in Berlin, moved to Sri Lanka and stayed with us and trained. And it helps us. I can give you one example. So one of this boy whom we identify from another community, his father was, he cannot speak. So in a society that they don't give him a job, he's coming from that Muslim communities in Sri Lanka. So he grew up only with the charity money. And before, whatever he does, like if someone goes to him, because they're traders mostly, that's why they also don't, in that community, they are not preferring higher education because they're traders, they're business, all the time business. So before that, he started so many things and failed his business and so whatever small business activities. And after we took him through that, so visual content creators, part of the design thinking. And now he came and told me after 1 year, now he has his own studio. And he said that now if someone comes to him with an idea, the first thing he does, who is the user? Can we talk to the user? He does all the numbers, the business modeling, financial modeling, testing, and then only he thinks that he's a 21-year-old boy in a war-affected region, can change, apply the design thinking in his everyday life. That's how, that it's applied for us. It's been used. So every time they talk about this idea or something, they just kind of do this. They ask the user, they think of that, and then they kind of plan this at least a small design sprint even for design dream space itself. We did the design thinking initially, went to the schools and parents and identify what would be their target and so on. Then only later we are into parents want their kids to be disturbed when they are studying school or when they are going to university, but this is a gap. Because I thought some completely another place target audience before we did the design thinking. But systemic thinking in a way that we have systems and guidelines and best practices. So we always say that everyone is trained very well in time management, task management, resource management, and expectation management. Every candidate, everyone, even external people, mentors who come into our organization, they have to follow this, and it's measured, optimized, and iterated. These factors that we always work on this systemic approach.
Thank you for that, Ada. Ahmed, who is apologizing for not being on video and on mute because he has a lot of background noise. He did post a question in the chat. What might be the most strict constraint to growth and applying this model to local communities at scale?
People.
Nota bene, aside from policy issue and political empowerment. People, you say. Sorry, I cut you off.
Simply, my co-founder, if your co-founder, if your team is working just as a job, it will never work anywhere. You need people on the ground who understands the ground realities, who have been on the ground and knows each and everything. are the people whom you can train to get those multidiscipline, whatever, blah, blah, technology. Technology is easy, humans are difficult, right? That is what is important. That if you have the right team, first thing, again, the model has to be customized. In our hometown, the elephants are chasing us, not in the same place in where you are, but maybe not, it's not true. So you need to completely customize to your own region, own cultural and ethnical, whatever is national, what is relevant for you, the challenges, how you work. One example I can tell you, when Maita is from the School of Design Thinking, Hasselblad Institute, one of the experts, when she went and we gave this design thinking, and you know that how intensive it is, right? You put this, and after lunch, and you also warm up, right, during the lunch in the design thinking. And these people in my team, they asked, can we sleep? They asked my team. And then I said, Maita's like, they ask you to sleep, but they kind of they will get super relaxed. You know, I said, no, let them sleep. And then they all lie down on the floor without anything, on the ground like that. And they slept like 10 people. And then I said, the design thinking that you brought from Berlin is different from the design thinking that you have to do here in Batticaloa. It has to be customized. It wouldn't work the same way, because now the international aid organizations are sending design thinking experts to teach tribal people how to think. It's so not that way. You know, they have of course they might make some different things, but they have a certain way of thinking and they have a certain way of acting. But we cannot just go and say that whatever you do, that's completely wrong, and take the design thinking from Hasselblad Institute 2.0 certified. Yeah. So that is that customization. So if you have the right people, you can customize this model to your, your challenges, your ecosystem, your need, and so on.
Brilliant. Ahmed, nice to see you in the group. Welcome. We're about to close. Are there any last questions, curiosities?
So I'm interested in, let's say, growing your businesses that you create. So do you see, you're still
I'm there.
Okay. So what's the pathway? Do you see international companies grow out of your dream academy? Yeah. Or is it more like, okay, it's local businesses that are very close connected to the community, and they do big benefit to the community, and they stay local and create value local, and to really start maybe a flourishing economy locally instead of aiming for the stars, so to say. Yeah, so the American big story, venture capital in, and then leave Sri Lanka and go to the United States because Sri Lanka is no market. Yeah, exactly. Or a little bit like Israel. So how do you see that?
And for me, like in this whole market expansion to another country or global, it's a way of stealing someone local's opportunity. You know, like if I go take this, whatever we do to, let's say, of course we cannot go to India, but like Cambodia, Laos, or something like that, the nearby countries, we're actually taking these opportunities from their people. Rather, that's why all the innovation that we do is open innovation. We would rather enable those locals to create, recreate, reproduce, and then build a business. And maybe that we can, that's the open innovation does not mean free, right? There's some sort of licensing can be done and something like that, rather than we just go and drive the market locals out of that. That is how I'm seeing as of now. But I think if every one of us tried to solve our own problems, starting from ourselves, home, our cities and countries, it will be global, somehow. If you all do that in where we are, we don't have to think that, okay, I want to be a super unicorn, like, give this. It's not, I think that philosophy itself, it's not, it's some form of stealing someone else's opportunities. And, but if there is a need, for example, this mycelium in that whole region, I know only few organizations who are doing, and if there's a shortage of those material that can enable other companies, sustainable companies, that they need the raw material. Now, currently they're importing from global north. If a supplier like us can supply to the global south, we are happy to do it. But we need to always find a way that how can we create that locally in those places where it is supplied. not just import and export and shifts and flights and things like that.
Ara, thank you so much for sharing with us. I believe who have participated in this will all come back to you, including myself. Lots has resonated. Many thoughts have popped up, and congratulations again for what you're doing, how you're doing it. There's no doubt about the why you're doing it, and a warm embrace from here. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you all, and see you then.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.